Hey guys, it's Awesome here and welcome back to a new video. Today I'll be testing Red Dead Redemption 2 on the GTX 1050 Ti paired with a Core i5-9400 and 16 gigs of RAM running in dual channel. And I use DX12 for testing along with the Nvidia 451.67 drivers. So Red Dead Redemption 2, I'll show you three resolutions 1080p, 900p and 720p. And for each tested resolution, I used high textures along with TAA, which was set to high. So moving on to 1080p, first I'll show you the Xbox One X settings, which was just enough for 30 FPS on average, and you can easily drop below 25 frames per second when there is a lot going on. Then I'll just use the low preset, which was enough for 34 FPS on average, with the maximum frame rate being over 40 FPS and lows just under 30 FPS. At last for 1080p, I'll just overclock the GTX 1050 Ti as I added 185 MHz to the core clock and 750 MHz to the memory clock. So here with the low preset, we see an average of 37 frames per second, which was about a 10% gain over stock settings. So for 1080p, I'll suggest using the low preset as it was consistent enough for 30 frames per second. Next for 900p, first I'll show you the low preset. This was enough for 44 frames per second on average, with 1% lows and minimums over 30 frames per second. This meant the game never dropped below 30 frames per second, with some occasional stutters. Next for the Xbox preset on 900p, here the average frame rate was 38 frames per second on average and lows close to 30 frames per second. At last for 900p, I'll just use the medium quality preset, which was enough for 34 frames per second on average, with 1% lows and minimums being under 30 frames per second. So for 900p, I'll suggest you use the Xbox preset as that was a good balance to visuals and frame rate. For last, I'll switch my resolution to 720p. Here I'll be showing you the low preset first. This was not enough to hit 60 frames per second, but we were very close with an average of 51 frames per second and lows close to 40 frames per second. Next for Xbox settings on 720p, this was enough for an average of 46 frames per second with decent visuals and consistent 1% lows and minimums of 30 frames per second. For medium settings on 720p, here the performance was very similar to the Xbox preset as we had an average of 44 frames per second on average, but the lows and minimums were much better than the Xbox preset. At last for high settings on 720p, which I will not recommend as the performance is not playable, and we had an average of 32 frames per second with frame rate drops below 30 FPS quite often. So for 720p, I'll suggest using the low preset for targeting 50 to 60 frames per second. And for those who are targeting 30 to 40 frames per second, just use the medium or the Xbox preset. So yeah guys, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoy. Drop a like if you do. Don't forget to subscribe and enable notifications to stay updated. I gladly appreciate all the support. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.
Your moves!
What's happening here? Okay, boys, this one sounds big. Stay away from me!
the fly.
He took all my money.
Tell your name.
You was born!
Weather couldn't be any better.
Homes for the fly.
Moins vite!
Out of the way!
God.